What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the new name, Sports to the Wire. We're a new name with a new brand, and for searchability results, we had to definitely change it because the old name wasn't even coming up in the search box at all. So, Sports to the Wire is catchy, and we're going to try to make this into a big brand as much as possible. All right, so we got Barrick in the house, and we got a special guest again, Kenneth Murray. He's back, and today we're going to be talking about Mr. Colin Kaepernick. He's back. He was back in the news cycle about the 4th of July, and Kenneth is a specialist in this department here when it comes to white supremacy, and I thought it was great that we get his actual expertise on this whole matter here.
Yeah, we here. We ready to get busy on this and get jumping on this Colin Kaepernick thing, along with other topics, along with the NFL, and we'll try to see if we can get into some basketball later on and talk about COVID and what it has done to both these major sports. So we'll go from there. But Mr. Kenneth, you were starting on what you feel about the white supremacist concept in regards to Mr. Colin Kaepernick's remarks. How
Well,
you feel
first
about
of all,
that?
well, first of all, let me just say all of the experts are white. I am a spokesperson. White supremacy is the belief that white people are superior to non-white people and should therefore dominate them globally. Now, the power structure always refuses to acknowledge white supremacy because they always say it doesn't exist. You have to have proof. White supremacy is a universal operating system that relies on patterns, principles, and practices. If you follow those patterns, principles, and practices, you will be successful over non-white people. Now, you may say that you do see non-white people making a great deal of money. Why? Because they follow the patterns, practices, and principles, and they've used it over non-white people and have made money on their backs. Okay? If you do not understand white supremacy, what it is and how it works, everything else you think you understand will confuse you. But always be reminded, the system of white supremacy is a system of death that must be dismantled.
Very good. Well, I agree with that. I agree with your assessment 100%. I mean, in regards to Colin Kaepernick, he's put himself in a position where do we all feel like he has an idea of white supremacy? And, his whole idea about not celebrating 4th of July, I don't agree with that. And the reason why I don't agree with that is because me personally, I've had people in my family, generations, who have fought in World War II. And I learned a great deal from these people, like these men that I have in my family, guys I've known for growing up as a little kid. And they take great pride in what they were able to do in regards to fighting the World War II. So I look at that aspect only, Kenneth, and I say that when you combine it to what view that Colin Kaepernick has on this issue, I think based on that reason, from my point of view, all right, I can't go as far out and say, well, he's wrong because there's a lot more that's going on. I mean, Colin Kaepernick has decided to be involved in a lot of things going on within the black community, and he's been pretty effective in that department. But saying that this is not something that should happen with the 4th of July celebration, based on my personal account, based on the things I've heard from generations in front of me, I just don't feel like it was the right thing for him to say. But he's got plenty of backing on this. And that's the problem we have right now. Yeah, Kim, I'm sorry.
Well, here's the deal. In 1776, while they were celebrating independence, our people were still in the cotton field. Fast forward a couple of years later, Lincoln signs the Emancipation Proclamation, and then the celebration begins again. But at this time, Frederick Douglass begins to say how great America is, and then he indicts America. He calls America a sham. What Colin Kaepernick did is the exact same thing. What he did is say this: how can you sit back and celebrate the greatness and the goodness of America when parts of your citizenry, I guess that's a word, your citizens are suffering. The veterans are suffering. Non-white people are suffering. Poor white people are suffering. You have the elderly. You have people who can't eat. They're starving. You have education. You have all these things going wrong, and yet you want to stand up and say, let's celebrate America. No, you can't celebrate until America becomes whole. Okay?
Right.
Now, that is the equation of white supremacy. All he did was say exactly what Frederick Douglass did, but he brought it down to a modern term. Now, right about now, we're dealing with police brutality, which is an oxymoron. Because if you are a police, you can't be brutal. The moment that you are brutal, you are no longer the police. The police stands for justice. The moment that you brutalize people, you are no longer justice. You are now dealing with injustice. So this is the reason why he is being lambasted, because he only did the same thing that Frederick Douglass did, but in a modern day term.
In modern day term, yeah, that's true. It's just unfortunate that we're sitting here, all three of us, and we're looking at Colin Kaepernick in a different way. I respect the man 100%. I really do, but I just think, and Rashid and I have had these conversations in the past about staying within your own personal platform and not taking it further beyond your control. But this is what we're talking about. Rashid, what do you have to add to this?
I disagree with him. And listen, it was white people that were being oppressed by King George, not to the point of how black people were, being mutilated and murdered. Well, they were killing white people back then too, but they were actually being oppressed too, and they wanted to start a business and the king would say, hey, you can't do this. Only this person can actually start a business. And they were getting, taxed. So it was an oppressive system that the founding fathers, that Thomas Jefferson and George Washington and these guys were fighting. And why? And the whole world back then was, everybody had slaves. Whether you were black, Germany had slaves, India had slaves. A lot of that was the actual norm. But Africa had slaves.
Understand, sir. Slaves is one thing. We're talking chattel slavery. No white man has ever been in chattel slavery in America. It is
define. I meant to look that up. Define chattel slavery for me, please.
Primarily, what it is, it's a group of one particular race that is being thrust into slavery, hard labor, to the point where they can die.
Right.
Okay.
They can die. It's chattel slavery. Chattel meaning like a herd. Okay. I have to look at that. But meaning it's a group of people basically owned to be destroyed. Owned to be destroyed. Okay? The wealth and power of America is built on the back of the poor. And this is why I say constantly, revolution is the only solution, so we can have equal economic wealth.
Well, I think it's there for you if you want to actually go out there and attain that. I mean, we talked about that yesterday, Kenneth, you and I. If a black person today wants to thrive in business, it all depends on what product, like how you get into business. If you're going to compete against, big conglomerates like Nike, if you want to start your own sneaker line, and
you gotta learn the business. You gotta learn the business first before you can go on.
No. I mean, you need money. You need capital. You need capital.
Well, you can always say you have it already.
You're going to need to actually have hundreds of millions of dollars at your disposal. And really, the only way you can actually do that is actually by going into venture capital firms or different angel investors who's going to take a piece of your company. So the best way for black people to actually survive today is a new product category. I had my own trucking business about 15 years ago, and That's one of the things I learned is don't get into a hyper competitive space, because really the only way you can succeed in that is by having hundreds of millions of dollars, losing money in a sense though. So let's say if you offer a service that's you know, your competitors offering at $50, you say, hey, I can offer this for like $20. But you have, the back end, you have, money to actually cover the operations costs in a sense. So that's how you thrive in business. But if it's a new product category, you don't have to do that. So I think that's where the problem actually comes in. Because I see white people make this mistake too. They get into business and they try to compete against. I watch Shark Tank. White people want to start up their own maple syrup line. Well, Aunt Jemima has that space already, man. I mean, they'll just
There's
lower
no
the
more
price.
Aunt Jemima. There's no more Aunt Jemima. But go ahead.
Well, you know what I mean. Just like let's just say a big syrup conglomerate, or somebody that's like you have a sneaker line that you want to start. But you got to compete against Nike and Adidas and all these big players in here, whether you white or black. Nobody likes competition. Competition makes you work harder, and it makes you have to work 15, 16, 17 hours a day, opposed to 7 to 8 hours a day.
That sounds like what we do.
Yeah, basically.
Is America a great country? It can be. But as long as the system of white supremacy is in charge and injustice is the law, America cannot be great. We need a system of equal justice for America to be great. Equal justice across the board. Okay, we cannot have a class system where if you're rich, you can skirt tail some of the laws because of your money. We cannot have a system.
Well, didn't OJ do that? I mean, the glove didn't fit. He had he had a lot of money.
The glove on purpose.
Johnny Cochran.
They shrink the glove. But anyway,
That is one equal justice. There's only one person that knows what went down that day, and they can't interview him, and that's the dog.
All right, so does this hurt? Because now Colin Kaepernick is actually offending the conservative people in this country, which is about 200 million people, by making that statement. Does he actually get a job? I mean, does this actually make him look even worse in a sense, though, among conservative people supporting the NFL brand?
It does. But let's just start with the fact that the biggest thing that happens within the NFL world or the NFL community, and it's mostly because of the sponsors. We all know the sponsors play a major role. In this particular case, yes, he is looking bad. But here's what's going on with Colin Kaepernick. This is the same problem when he first started kneeling. You had the problem with all the veterans who once served and the guys who are currently serving. They made the comment that he's disrespecting the flag, right? The very same thing we're talking about now with 4th of July. We wound up actually accepting that moving forward, because now what's happening now within the level of sports, now all of a sudden we're apologizing to Kaepernick. We should have basically said to you, hey, thank you for kneeling down, and we should have been more of accepting of you 3 or 4 years ago. I don't think that's going to happen now. So to answer your question, no, he doesn't look good. He was on his way to looking better based on what was happening, and now he doesn't look good anymore in this particular case. Now, he has offended a lot of people, mostly within the military community. That's where most of the problem is right now. You just can't do that, in my personal opinion. You just can't go out there and make these comments and expect these individuals, veterans of the world, people who basically are responsible for the very freedom we have now, and you just can't put them in a position where everything they've done or their ancestors have done is basically put to waste. And like I said again, my views on this situation is not extensive. So I basically kind of peel back on this, because Colin Kaepernick, to my personal opinion, is basically stepping above the line. He's out of bounds on this situation. And, you know, to me, to you, to Keith, he really doesn't deserve as much compensation. But to answer your question, Rashid, yes, he has made himself look very bad.
All right, Kenneth, your rebuttal to that?
Well, it's not a rebuttal, it's just the actual truth. You know, you don't go into your boss's home and tell your boss, look, I know you're paying me a lot of money, but I'm going to do what I want to do. You don't do that. The situation is that, like I said, these sports athletes make millions and millions of dollars. He could have bought a newspaper, he could have bought a radio station, he could have bought a TV station to get his message across outside of the workplace. Why? Because the moment that you step into the workplace, you don't have any right or authority to tell your boss what you are going to do when they are paying you that type of money. Okay? Now, I know people are upset at him, but this is not about the flag. Let's be very, very clear. I've always said this and I won't stop saying it. This is about police brutality. Now, he got the idea, allegedly, because of what happened in the Olympics, when the young man threw his fist in the air to identify with the brothers and sisters who were struggling in the street. So he decided to do the same thing. The difference between then and now is no difference, except that he's being paid a lot of money. So buy a TV show, buy a TV station, buy a newspaper, a radio, get your message out. But
Well, he's still a name on an NFL in the NFL period.
Yeah, he's still attached to it. He's still attached to it.
TV show, or he buys a radio station. I mean, he's a brand in himself, though. You know, so
let's be very, very clear. If
look back.
he's doing his job correctly, this would not be an issue.
Well, there you go. There you go. Thank you very much. If he was playing well, this wouldn't have been the problem. But go ahead.
If he was doing his job correctly, this would not have been an issue. How many NFL stars have screwed up, and because they bring the butts in the seat, the money in the pocket, oh, we're just going to let this slide. You know, we'll give him counseling. But when you are a ne'er-do-well, when you are trying, now all of a sudden it ain't working. Now you got to pick a cause in front of the whole entire world. Okay? He gets a job interview and the NFL says, look, we're going to, he goes, no. You will come the way I tell you to come. Mm-hmm. Now, I mean, really, who's interviewing who for the job here? So, I mean,
right.
I mean, we have to look at brass tacks and say, he made a mistake. And like Berg said on the last show we did, they're going to give him a tryout.
Mm-hmm.
A tryout.
That's it.
Have a good day. That's it.
All right.
Because what it say in layman's terms, I'm sorry, Sue, what it says in layman's terms is that we have to make it look good. We have to make you look like we're going to make some sort of an attempt. But at the end of the day, and Keith, this is another thing I want to always add when it comes down to the situation with Colin Kaepernick. Listen, you went out and sued the NFL over what they consider to be a blackballed situation. They figured he got blackballed. That was his whole complaint. Well, he won. They settled. They gave him money. So how do you sue this very same brand and now you're supposed to get a job in that same company? It's not going to work that way. It's not going to work that way. And now Colin Kaepernick's taken to the next level by talking about the flag. I tell you, this guy will find more ways than none to keep going and keep himself in the limelight. Like you mentioned, Keith, it's his brand.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. All right, we're going to wrap this up. Make sure you like, definitely comment, subscribe, share the video. We're going into part 2, and we're going to be talking about whether the NFL will cancel the season or not due to COVID. Share the video. Remember, sharing is actual caring.
Yes, please care for us.
All right, guys. Peace out.
All right, guys.
All right, so we're going to start up